Well, before I begin this latest video on my top 1,000 countdown, okay, I would first like to begin by giving my congratulations to Terence Bud Crawford for his historic accomplishment. Being a three-weight undisputed champion in this modern era. Quite incredible. What has he won now? 14 world title belts across 5 divisions. Incredible. Incredible stuff, Terence, and big shout out to Canelo as well. The losing man, but so humble and giving so much credit to Crawford for him being fighter he is. Yeah, fantastic stuff. So anyway, now that that's out of the way, okay, now I've calmed down after watching the fight. This is my latest video on my top 1,000. Okay, we're going numbers 470 to 461. Okay, so let us unveil which 10 fighters these are. So first off, okay, we start with Sandro Mazinga, Alessandro Mazinga, but everybody referred to him as Sandro Mazinga. Okay, who beat 2 world champions. Okay, he fought 58 rounds against champions, and he beat no Hall of Fame fighters. He also fought 21 rounds against Hall of Famers. And Sandro Mazinga had 13 fights against rated opponents. Now, in terms of knockouts, he scored 42. Okay, he scored 15 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 5 in the first round. Sandro Mazinga was top 10 rated for 6 years, and the longest unbeaten run, okay, was an unbeaten run of 24 fights. Now, Sandro Mazinga was pound for pound rated for 0 years. And he had a total of 5 fights against pound-for-pounders, scoring 3 wins. He scored 1 win against a pound-for-pound top 3 fighter and 0 wins against pound-for-pound number 1 rated fighters. And Sandro Mazinga's opposition fought rate comes in at 3 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 2 from 13. So, Sandro Mazinga had 5 fights against champions. That included 3 wins, 2 losses, no draws, and 2 KOs. He had 2 fights against Hall of Famers. Okay, both of them are defeats. And he had 7 world title fights. Okay, that included 5 wins, 2 losses, no draws, and 3 title defences. So, there is Sandro Mazinga, okay, in 470 when we go to 469. Okay, his former middleweight champion Paul Pender, of course, who relieved Robinson of his 5th middleweight title and denied Robinson breaking his own record for the multiple time in winning it back. The tough and capable Paul Pender. Now, Paul Pender beat 3 world champions, okay, for 87 rounds against champions, and he beat 2 Hall of Fame fighters individually, fighting 55 rounds against Hall of Famers. Paul Pender had 12 fights against rated fighters, and he scored a total of 20 knockouts, okay, 12 in 3 rounds or less, and 3 in the first round. Pender was top 10 rated for a total of 4 years, and the longest unbeaten run in his career was an unbeaten run of 21 fights in total. Now, Paul Pender was pound for pound rated for 1 year, and he had 7 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 5 wins. He scored 3 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 3 wins against pound for pound number 1 rated fighters. And Paul Pender's opposition fought rate comes in at 2 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 2 from 13. So Pender had 7 fights against champions. That includes 4 wins, 3 losses, no draws with 1 KO. He had 4 fights against Hall of Famers, including 3 wins, 1 loss, no draw with 0 KOs. And Paul Pender, all in all, had 6 world title fights, scoring 5 wins with 1 loss, no draw and 3 title defences. So on to fighter number 468, okay, is Cannonball Eddie Martin. Now, Eddie Martin, okay, beat 2 world champions. He fought 94 rounds against champions, and he beat no Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 40 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Now, Eddie Martin had 17 fights against rated opponents, and he scored 29 knockouts, 19 in 3 rounds or less, and 7 in the first round. Eddie Martin was top 10 rated for a total of 2 years, and the longest unbeaten run in his career was an unbeaten run of 52 fights. Now, Eddie Martin was pound for pound rated for 0 years, and he had 1 fight against pound for pounders, but scored no wins in the 3 pound for pound categories, and his opposition fought rate comes in at 3 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 2 from 13. So Eddie Martin had 9 fights against champions. Okay, he scored 3 wins with 5 losses, 1 draw, 0 knockouts. He had 3 fights against Hall of Famers, all of which were defeats. And Eddie Martin had 4 world title fights. That included 2 wins, 2 loss, no draw, with 1 title defence. So on to our next fighter. Okay, is the Senegalese French powerhouse, okay, battling Siki, who I believe is a new name this year. Is he a new name this year? Did I have him in last year? Battling Siki, okay, beat one world champion. He fought 63 rounds against champions, and he beat one Hall of Fame fighter. Siki also fought 31 rounds against Hall of Famers overall, and he had a total of 6 fights against rated fighters, but he was fighting before the rating era, so his number is limited. Now, battling Siki scored 31 knockouts, okay, 17 in 3 rounds or less, and 1 in the first round. And obviously, being mainly pre-rating era fighter, he was top 10 rated for 0 years. Now, Siki was longest unbeaten run, was an unbeaten run of 30 fights, and he was never pound for pound rated in my all-time ratings. Siki did have 3 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 2 wins. He scored 2 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters, 0 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And battling Siki's opposition fought rate comes in at 3 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 2 from 13. So Siki had 5 fights against champions, okay, including 1 win, 4 loss, no draws with 1 KO. He had 3 fights against Hall of Famers, including 1 win, 2 loss, no draw with 1 KO. And he had 2 world title fights, including 1 win, 1 loss, no draws and 0 title defences. So, on to fighter number 466, okay, is Eddie Babe Briscoe, former middleweight champion. Now, Babe Briscoe beat 2 world champions. He fought 122 rounds against champions, and he did beat 2 individual Hall of Fame fighters, fighting a total of 110 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. Babe Briscoe had 29 fights against rated opponents, and he scored 18 knockouts in his career, 10 in 3 rounds or less, and 0 in the first round. Now, Babe Briscoe was top 10 rated for 2 years, and the longest unbeaten run in his career was an unbeaten run of 20 fights in total. Now, he was never pound for pound rated in my all-time rankings. Excuse me, I just had to cough. I could feel a tickle in my throat. Babe Briscoe had 12 fights against pound for pound fighters, scoring 3 wins. He scored 3 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 2 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And his opposition fought rate comes in at 4 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 2 from 13. So against champions, okay, Babe Briscoe had 12 fights, including 3 wins, 9 losses, no draw with 1 knockout. He had 11 fights against Hall of Famers, including 3 wins, 8 loss, no draw with 1 knockout. And he had 4 title fights. That includes 2 wins, 2 loss, no draw, and 1 title defence. So Eddie Babe Briscoe is 466. When we go to 465, it is the Black Mamba, okay, Roger Mayweather, of course, famed trainer of Floyd Mayweather Jr., his nephew. So Roger Mayweather, okay, beat 6 world champions, okay, he fought 105 rounds against champions. He beat 1 Hall of Fame fighter, also fighting 48 rounds against Hall of Famers in his career. And Roger Mayweather had a total of 21 fights against rated opponents. He scored 35 knockouts, okay, virtually half of them almost at 17 in 3 rounds or less, and he scored 2 first round wins. Now, Mayweather was top 10 rated for a total of 9 years. His longest unbeaten run was one of 17 fights, and he was pound for pound rated in my all-time rankings for 1 year. Now, against pound for pounders themselves, Roger Mayweather had 8 fights. He scored 3 wins against pound for pound fighters, but no wins against top 3 or pound for pound number 1 rated fighters. And his opposition fought rate comes in at 3 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 2 from 13. So against champions, okay, Roger Mayweather had 14 fights. That included 6 wins, 8 losses, no draws with 4 knockouts. He had 5 fights against Hall of Famers, including 1 win, 4 loss, no draw with 0 knockouts. And Roger Mayweather had 13 world title fights. That included 8 wins, 5 losses, no draws, and 6 title defences. So onwards and upwards we go, okay, to 464, okay, it is middleweight puncher Al Hostak. Now, Al Hostak, okay, beat 3 world champions. He fought 62 rounds against champions, and Hostak beat 1 Hall of Fame fighter, fighting a total of 36 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. He had a total of 18 fights against rated opponents, and he scored 41 knockouts, okay, 29 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 10 knockouts in the first round. round. Now, Hostak was top 10 rated for a total of 5 years, and the longest unbeaten run in his career was an unbeaten run of 29 fights. He was pound for pound rated for 0 years, and he had a total of 7 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 2 wins. He scored 1 win against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 0 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. And his opposition fought rate comes in at 3 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 2 from 13. So Hostak, okay, had 8 fights against champions. That includes 3 wins, 5 losses, no draws. With 3 knockouts, he had 5 fights against Hall of Fame fighters, including 1 win, 4 loss, no draw with 1 knockout. And he had 6 world title fights, including 3 wins, 3 losses, no draws, and 1 title defence. So on to our next fighter, okay, it is the historic assassin, former light heavyweight lineal champion Paul Berlenbach. Now Berlenbach, okay, beat 5 champions. He fought 99 rounds against champions, and Berlenbach beat 3 Hall of Fame fighters individually, fighting 82 rounds against Hall of Famers overall. And in terms of fights against rated opponents, Berlenbach comes in with a total of 12. He scored 35 knockouts, okay, 14 knockouts in 3 rounds or less, and 9 knockouts in the first round, and he was top 10 rated for a total of 3 years. Now Berlenbach's longest unbeaten run was a run of 21 fights, and he was pound for pound rated for 1 year in my all-time rankings. Now Berlenbach had a total of 8 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 3 wins. He scored 0 wins against pound for pound top 3 fighters and 0 wins against pound for pound number 1 fighters. Shout out to Drunk Irishman in the chat. And his opposition fought rate, okay, was 2 from 18, and opposition beat rate was 1 from 13. Yeah, I gave Crawford his credit at start. Yeah, I do believe, if I'm correct, it's his 14th world title. Looking at the 4 main divisions, that's more than Pacquiao. That's more than actually Floyd Mayweather. Not talking resume, but just on world titles. 14 world titles across 5 divisions now he's titled in. Yeah, that's quite incredible, really. 3-weight undisputed champion. So yeah, incredible performance, controlled, patient performance by Crawford. But someone I know at work said, "Oh, do you think he's got a chance?" I said, "Yeah, of course he's got a chance, because he's a skilled, silky operator." Canelo's never been known for being able to box on a level with silky or good boxers, demonstrated by Mayweather and Bivol. And I said, if Crawford's anywhere near their level, then he could beat him. But I said the only way Canelo can beat Crawford is by mauling him, and Canelo didn't. I think the mistake Canelo made is he came out and almost showed too much respect. He was posturing and trying to feint with Crawford. You can't come out and start fighting Terence Crawford like that. You're not going to beat Terence Crawford doing that. The only way Canelo were going to win that fight, we're never going to box on Crawford's level or outbox him. Canelo's a competent boxer. He's a decent counterpuncher. He doesn't really counterpunch as much as what he used to in his younger years. He's more of a front foot fighter now. But ultimately we're never going to win that way. He had to attack Crawford. He had to be consistent. You've got to be consistent with Crawford. You can't lay off and stand back and try and feint with him and try and position him. You're not going to beat Terence Crawford that way. It's as simple as that. The only way you're going to beat him is by being brave and engaging. Okay, you've got to engage him. You've got to initiate the exchanges. You've got to push into Crawford. You've got to try and make him uncomfortable. How Canelo boxed with Crawford was completely comfortable. And if you're fighting a master boxer and he's in his comfort zone, he's just going to do it all night long. But yeah, big congratulations to both men for a massive fight, an historic fight, because like I've said, Crawford has done what many great fighters have passed did, fought fighters in much higher weights, and if they're losing, give a good effort, you give him commiseration, but he's actually won, winning another 4 main belts plus the ring super middleweight belt. When you count ring titles with Crawford, he's approaching 20 world titles in the 4 main belts and ring titles. That's pure insanity. But yeah, fantastic stuff. So anyway, on with my video. Okay, Berlenbach had 8 fights against pound for pounders, scoring 3 wins. No wins against top 3 pound for pounders or pound for pound number 1 fighters. Paul Berlenbach's opposition fought rate was 2 from 18. Big shout out to Martin in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. and his opposition beat rate is 1 from 13. So Berlenbach, okay, had 11 fights against champions, including 6 wins, 5 losses, no draws, with 4 knockouts. He had 8 fights against Hall of Famers, including 3 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, with 1 knockout. And he had 5 title fights, including 4 wins, 1 loss, no draw, 3 title defences. Yeah, I'm 100% taking Inoue in that fight. So there's Paul Berlenbach in 463. Okay, when we go to 462, he is the brawling, exciting light heavyweight champion of the early 80s. I always tell people, if you want to see some blusterbus, barmy knockouts and barmy brawls, just go watch Matthew Saad Muhammad's title run and some of his fights around his title run. Some fantastic battles he was in. Many highlight real moments in Matthew Saad Muhammad's career. So he defeated 6 world champions, okay, he fought 125 rounds against champions, and he beat no Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 16 rounds against Hall of Famers. Now, Matthew Saad Muhammad had 20 fights against rated fighters, and he scored 29 knockouts, 7 knockouts in 3 rounds, and 2 in the first round. And Saad Muhammad was top 10 rated for a total of 5 years. His longest unbeaten run was one of 18 fights, and he was pound-for-pound rated for 2 years. Now, against pound-for-pounders, Saad Muhammad had 7 fights, okay, he scored 4 wins. He scored 0 wins against pound-for-pound top 3 fighters, and 0 wins against pound-for-pound number 1 fighters. And his opposition fought rate comes in at 3 from 18, and his opposition beat rate was 2 from 13. So all in all, he had 14 fights against champions, including 7 wins, 6 loss, 1 draw, with 4 knockouts. He had 2 fights against Hall of Famers, both of them are defeats, and he had 11 world title fights. Okay, that includes 9 title fight wins, with 2 losses, no draws, and he made 8 title defences prior to the division in the coming years being overtaken by the great light heavyweight champion Michael Spinks. So there is Matthew Saad Muhammad in 462. The final fighter of this video is a fighter called Wallace Bud Smith, okay, the former lightweight contender. Now, Wallace Bud Smith beat 2 world champions, okay, he fought 70 rounds against champions, and he beat 2 individual Hall of Fame fighters, fighting 59 rounds against them. Now, Wallace Bud Smith had a total of 43 fights against rated fighters. He scored 42 knockouts, okay, 24 in 3 rounds or less, and 6 in the first round. And Bud Smith was top 10 rated for a total of 5 years. The longest unbeaten run was an unbeaten run of 18 fights, and he was pound-for-pound rated for 1 year. Now, Wallace Bud Smith had 10 fights against pound-for-pounders, scoring 4 wins. He scored 2 wins against pound-for-pound top 3 fighters, and 0 wins against pound-for-pound number 1 fighters. Wallace Bud Smith's opposition fought rate comes in at 7 from 18, and his opposition beat rate is 4 from 13. So in fights against champions, okay, he had 9, including 2 wins, 7 loss, no draw, with 1 knockout. He had 7 fights against Hall of Famers, including 2 wins, 5 losses, no draws, with 1 knockout, and he had 1 title fight that was a defeat, but mixed in very tough company. He indeed did. And like I've always said, you know, the fights against champions, Hall of Famers, some fighters have winning records, some fighters have split records, some fighters like Wallace Bud Smith had losing records in those categories, but we always have to remember they are just in those categories. He only had 9 fights against champions and 7 against Hall of Famers. Some of the Hall of Famers were champions. So that percentage of opponent taken from his career is only a very small percentage of his career. And like I've always said on my channel and this channel now and my former channel, I said it for years, you have got to look at the whole career and the composition of the whole career. You know, with all fighters, not just Wallace Bud Smith, all fighters, even Sam Langford, you know, he fought many tough fighters who were never champions, never Hall of Famers, never pound-for-pounders, all of this stuff. So we always have to remember to look at the whole career to see the true value of an opponent's opposition. So there's my latest video. Okay, there's 2 coming today. I've done the light heavyweights at 70s on the graph chart. The super middleweights are all ready. As the light heavyweight videos are all finished, the super middleweights are all ready to do the videos, and I'm currently doing the middleweights. I'm in the 40s now on the middleweights, so the middleweights are underway. So I'm well ahead of schedule. They'll continue for indefinite, but I want to get this playlist done by end of October latest, so then I can chill out and finally go back to my career videos, and there's just going to be for the rest of this year and through next year, hundreds of career videos coming. I've set myself a target of doing more than 1,000 career videos. On my old Blue Screen career videos on the 17 playlist, I did 664 Blue Screen videos. But on this channel, I'm looking to punch on those 17 playlists over 1,000 career videos. So as soon as this top 1,000 is done, there won't be a top 1,000 for a few years. I've got a new style for top 1,000 now. Future top 1,000s are going to be on 2 slides. One slide is similar to this, but I'm adding on world titles, lineal titles, and disputed titles. The stats are being changed so that the stats are across all eras, so no rated opponents where pre-rated era fighters don't get recognised. All of the stats on the new videos are cross-era stats, and then they have a second slide, okay, with more information on, breaking down the resume more so, on the pound for pound rankings, etc. So in a future top 1,000 in a number of years' time when I do it, each fighter is going to have 2 slides. So the videos will be twice as long, but the videos will be twice as informative, 3 or 4 times more informative, because all I do on this is list stats, but on the future videos you're going to get a deeper opponent breakdown, etc. But that's already sorted. I've already got that slide, so I know exactly what I'm doing. So yeah, the main goal is get this finished so I can crack on with hundreds of career videos. So I'll be back later tonight with another edition on my top 1,000, going 460 to 451. I'll catch you all later. Big shout out to guys in chat. I'm Boxing Librarian, and I'm out for now.